So on the recommendations of the Narasimha committee, okay, the government has undertaken a lot of things. So the government has undertaken since 1991. Okay, so the first one the government has done is lowering the SLR and the CRR. Okay, so there was a lot of high CRR and SLR. Now the government has reduced that. So the high SLR and CRR reduced the profits of the banks that the government realized. So the SLR has been reduced from 38.5% in 1991 to 25% in 1997. So you can understand, because they wanted to, because profits were reduced in the bank, so to avoid that they have reduced the SLR. What about the CRR? Let's see. Okay, so let us see the CRR also, because that is also very important. That is cash reserve ratio. Okay, so now talking about SLR, this has left, more funds. So banks have more money with banks for allocation. So the banks can now give funds to agriculture, industry, trade, etc. Now let's talk about the cash reserve ratio, that is CRR. So the CRR is the cash ratio of banks, that is total deposits to be maintained with RBI. Now the CRR has also been brought down. So the CRR had been brought down from 15% in 1991 to 4.1% in June 2003. Okay, so this is the purpose was to release the funds locked up with RBI, so that RBI can remove the funds and it can give it to the people who are in need of it. Okay, now coming to the most important thing, so this was the first, was lowering the SLR and the CRR. The second recommendation they followed on Narasimha committee is, let me just wrap this. Okay, so the second one is prudential norms. Okay, so prudential means the true norms. So what are they? Let us see. So prudential norms have been started by RBI in order to bring some professionalism, in order to bring some professionalism in commercial banks. Okay, So it includes, what does it include? Let me write. It includes proper disclosure of income, classification of assets, and provision for any bad debts or bad accounts. Okay, for bad debts, which we have studied in account. And why is it done? So as to ensure commercial banks, they reflect a accurate and the most correct picture of the financial position. So if this is maintained, then they can ensure that the books of commercial bank accounts will reflect the accurate and the correct picture of the financial position. Okay, and that is why these prudential norms are being created, by the government. Okay, so just let me continue this point. Some more things are need to be discussed. Okay, now prudential norms required banks to make 100% provision for all non-performing assets, that is NPAs. Now funding for this purpose was placed at rupees 10,000 crores phased over 2 years. So for 2 years this was done. Okay, so this is the second point of prudential firms. Okay, so let me just clear this. Let's talk about the third recommendation taken by the government. Okay, so the third one is capital adequacy norms, which is called as CAN, C-A-N, CAN. Okay, so this is, so it is the, so what is capital adequacy norm? So it is the ratio of minimum capital to risk asset ratio. Now let me give you some statistics so you'll understand this better. So in April 1992, RBI fixed CAN at 8%. By March 1996, all public sector banks had attained the ratio of 8%, and this was also attained by foreign banks. So let me write that. So it was also, so all the whatever they had set the target, it was attained by both commercial banks of India and also the foreign banks, attained by foreign banks. Okay, now coming to the fourth point, so let me clear this. Okay, the fourth one is D. So it's a deregulation. So I told you that deregulation should be done of interest rates. Okay, now the Narasimham committee advocated, or they said that interest rates should be allowed to be determined by market forces. So, since 1992, interest rates have become much simpler and freer. Okay, so it's much easier. Okay, let us talk something more in detail. So, scheduled commercial banks have now the freedom to set interest rates. So previously this was not there.